Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Women in Ventures event here at VC Lab. We're so excited to have you here and to hold this session where we're going to talk about all things being a woman in venture capital, and we're going to feature some really strong VCs who all happen to be women, and kind of they're shaping the future of the industry. So by way of introduction, my name is Myrto Lalacos. I'm from Desal Group, and I run our flagship programs at VC Lab, where we power the next generation of VCs worldwide. We're trying to make venture capital more ethical, more accessible, and more affordable, so that more people can kind of join the industry and shape the future of it. So at Desal Group, you know, all these programs fall under this umbrella called Desal Group, where we are building and providing everyone with an array of, you know, services and tools to help set up a venture capital firm. And for any of you here who are thinking of launching a venture capital firm, we have applications open for cohort 15 at the moment, which is looking like it's going to be our largest cohort yet. So please go ahead and apply if you're, you know, launching a venture capital firm. We also have applications open for LP Institute, cohort 2 at the moment. LP Institute is for those of you who want to be LPs in venture capital funds. So there's more information about all of that in our website. We can also drop a link in the chat as well if you want to go ahead and check that out. But with that, you know, out of the way, today we're focusing on women in venture capital. So at VC Lab, we've helped to launch hundreds of firms that have at least one woman GP. Overall, our community of emerging VCs is made up of approximately 30% of women, which is so much higher than the industry standard. And we're so proud of this statistic. However, we do want to get that to 50% such that, you know, venture capital becomes a truly diverse kind of sector for everyone. And we think that this is going to have huge benefits, both financially, in terms of impact, and so on and so forth. So we all have to kind of do our bit to make sure this is a diverse sector. And with that, we have an amazing panel of women VCs today who, you know, I'm so happy to be having this conversation with them. And, you know, with that, let's kind of dive right in, and maybe we go around and introduce everybody here. So Iwona, why don't we start with you? Could you give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, thanks a lot for the invitation. I was a participant of the cohort 12, so, you know, greetings to everyone from all the cohorts, but especially from cohort 12. And, you know, I started my career with academia. I did my PhD in molecular biology, then I did my postdoc, and then somehow, you know, things were too slow for me. And I set up my own startup. Then I jumped to some biotech startup. I helped raise a round. And I also advised other startups, you know, how to navigate through the fundraising and running a company. And at some point, I met Tomek. This is my current fund partner. And in 2020, we decided to fundraise for our first fund. So, you know, in a nutshell, this is my pathway from, you know, scientific world to the VC world.
Amazing. Karen, can we also kind of learn a little bit more about you as well?
Sure. Very happy to be here, everyone. I'm Karen Sheffield. I'm the founder and managing partner of Pachamama Ventures. Yeah, so I was part of cohort 8 of VC Lab. So it seems like a long time ago, and in a lot of ways, it still seems like really not long ago. My background is I'm originally from Peru, right? I moved to the US for college, and then I studied finance and economics. And my background is mostly as an operator. Okay, so the last 16 years has been spent in finance executive roles across Fortune 100 companies. So a bit different of a background for a VC, if you will. But having said that, when I started angel investing on the side 4 years ago, I realized that there was like this definite need in pre-seed and seed stage companies for exactly the kind of background I had, right? Like having been there and like scaling businesses from millions of dollars in revenues to billions, and just like setting up go-to-market strategies, pricing architectures from scratch, financial growth plans, what to do your working capital, how do you spend the next dollar best, right? Like, and how do you do ROI and all this analysis. So I just found out really early that that was an edge, and that's what allowed me to like kind of double down in that strategy, and then finally picked had to pick a lane and a thesis for my fund and my firm, which was ultimately climate tech, which has a personal backstory of mine that we can go into another time, but I keep it short.
Thank you so much, Karen. Elvie, what about you? Oh, it seems like we're losing Elvie.
Yeah, maybe we can give her a couple of minutes and or to come back, or give her dial in instructions. Is there a way to dial in?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's okay. We can kind of carry on, and then when Elvie comes back, we'll have her introduce herself and kind of join the discussion, kind of from where she left off. But okay, so you guys you come from very different backgrounds, yet you're both kind of venture capital investors today. And I just want to know, kind of from your background, from all the things that you have done, what do you think was the most important kind of skill or experience that you kind of got from your pre-venture capital kind of life into this new kind of phase of your career? And I don't know who wants to go first. I'm leaving it open.
I can start. So, being a scientist, really taught me to be resilient to the failure. If you think about the scientific work, you really do a number of experiments. You really do not know the answer, because once you know, you do not need to run experiment. And many of them just fail, or they give you an answer that you cannot publish. There is no discovery behind that, or nobody is interested in the story. It might also happen that someone else is doing similar things and it's faster than you, and then during your experiments you are already reading a paper about the work you are already doing. And I think this is very similar to the startup world and to the building portfolio. You just invest in a number of companies. It's like similar to running a number of experiments, and you do not know the outcome. There's also the environment outside. There are other people who are in science who are investigating similar topics, and here there are other startups and backed by other venture firms. They are also taking part in this race. So and you really have to be resilient to the failure to stay in science. And I think this is very true also for the VC world and startups.
I love that so much. It's such a perfect kind of comparison between science and venture capital. And, it's a point of view that I haven't seen, kind of thought about before. And it's true that, you learn to be okay with failure. You learn to be okay with things not working out, but then in kind of the 1 in 100 is going to create this life-changing result.
Myrto, there are even more similarities. If you think about a scientist, as scientists, we have to gather money for our research. We have to convince someone that it makes sense. It's very similar to the fundraising, and then if you do not have a good result, you will not get a new grant, for your next venture or your next experiment, So there are more similarities than differences if you think about the process.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I love that. And for everyone here, by the way, we want this to be as interactive as possible. And you'll see there's a Q&A button beside kind of your chat button here on AirMeet. So please do pop the questions that you want us to ask to the panel, because we want you guys to get involved into this conversation as well. With that, Karen, what about you? What is it that, and I'm kind of repeating the question for Elvie as well. Elvie, we're going to come back to you. We're discussing, what things from your background and from your career before venture capital has helped you be good at what you're doing today. So Karen, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, like, my background as a big corporate Fortune 100 finance executive is kind of interesting because at first I don't look like I really would know how to operate in a small startup space. But the reality is that in a lot of these companies, like at American Airlines, PepsiCo and Visa to an extent, all of these kind of roles that I had were like at these like strategic business units were like that were set or we were supposed to set up to grow 2x or 3x a core, right? Like, so it kind of operates like an entrepreneur in residence role within those companies. So even when it by my resume it looks like I'm like a big corporate, and and that comes with the territory. What I mean to the point I'm getting at is when you come from a big corporate, sometimes that's hard to translate into small startup world, right? Like, where like you really have to wear many hats. You don't get to say like, oh, that's not my job, or like this is how we've been doing things for the last 10 years, right? Like, which you do here, and I heard it a lot from a lot of my peers working in that environment, and that would actually drive me crazy, right? Because I'm used to like really coming in, and like I think my zone of excellence is coming into unstructured places and really bringing the structure, right? Best in class practices, like really starting everything up from scratch and really giving like bringing it to life. And so that kind of describes less Fortune 100 finance executive usually, which is they tend to be more risk averse and all of that, right? Whereas for me, you know I made the best of those both worlds. It was a win-win situation to be kind of like an entrepreneur in residence in those huge companies where they give you like this budget and these like kind of like the carte blanche to like go and whatever it takes, go and take it to the next level, right? Like, so that was very transferable to the VC space, and really supporting small startup founders, right? Like, and then going from 0 to 1. I would say that that's one of the most relatable things. And the other thing is like just like these the appetite for like really the variety of problems. Like, at heart, I'm, I'm like in my core, I really like just solving tough problems, right? So in my own career as a finance person, I worked in the airline industry, in the CPG retail, in the well, software also as well, airline software tech for a while, and then finally fintech and payments, right? Like, I've always been looking for like what's interesting out there and how to solve really tough problems, right? Kind of more of a consultant, if you will. So when you go into VC, you're constantly having to upskill, right? Because you're having to learn about this new climate. In my case of climate, right? Like, I had to really upskill fast. I spent weekends reading white papers on like sectors in climate tech that I'm looking to invest in, and I might not be a technical person, but I certainly want to be well informed, or informed enough to be able to, if I make an investment, first of all, have the conviction to do it. And then second, once you have invested, really talk to that investment with other later stage investors. You're always advocating for your founders, right? And your portfolio companies. So there's just a lot of stuff that I pull from that past life into the now.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you, Karen. Elvie, we lost you for a minute there. We're so happy to have you back.
Yeah.
Can you please start off by introducing yourself for everyone, and then, what you're up to, and then, kind of just talking a little bit about what in your, what has served you from your pre-VC life into venture capital.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited to be here. So I think from the early stage of my whole life, I was really exposed to understanding the science and innovation, and the importance of creating new technologies to kind of redefine the current systems that we live in, because of them being quite inefficient. So really had that idea about changing the world in my own way since I was probably like 4. And then ended up really being fascinated by technologies and innovation. Got into EY tech advisory sector as my first career. They in fact hired me a year before my graduation, which was really sweet, knowing that I already have a place to land in. But really was interested in how technology could transform the organizational systems. And that's where I got into a blockchain space. So That was in 2015, 16-ish. And that's how from New York, I moved to Silicon Valley to really start helping these companies in blockchain space to define their strategy. I helped them to create their white papers, token economics, fundraising strategy, and got really interested in the investment space at the same time. And now really implying my understanding of the investment world and tech and blockchain in conjunction with my experience at Chainlink Labs, which was my recent experience where I really was responsible for due diligence in companies, speaking with hundreds of founders, negotiating the investment terms, investing, and then helping them post-investment with go-to-market fundraising strategy and etc. I think really put me now in a place of truly understanding how the companies work, how difficult it is to start building a company and define the product, but also pushing it to the market, which I find really interesting personally, because I love working with founders and helping them succeed. And I think that really put me in a place now of defining the system in the blockchain space and where we can go forward from here, from redefining the monetary system that we live in now to really creating efficient processes for organizations and corporations, to creating new economic models.
I love that so much. Thank you, Elvie. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about, angel investing. In particular, Karen, you mentioned, you were angel investing, but Iwona and Elvie, if you guys were doing that as well, please kind of jump in. How did you find out that angel investing was kind of an option for you, and it's something that you can do? So how did you start angel investing, and how it was that something that was helpful to kind of get you to where you are today? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So in my case, I wasn't an angel investor. I just jumped into the startups and I had to run them. So I founded my own startup. So I kind of invested my life, my time. This is the time is the only resource that you can never, ever get back. It's not like the money that you can lose and then earn again. But, it was kind of the adventure at the very beginning. And I think I was not really aware where I'm going in terms of, how hard it is. Once I knew it, I would never ever decide to, run a startup or fundraise. And it was really, Karen, you were laughing, but it's true. It was like, similar, like with my PhD. Once I knew how hard it was, I would never ever decide to do that because it was a really hard job. It was the same, and it was also true for my startups, and it was also true for our first fund. So, this was the biggest challenge I had. On the other hand, I was not fully aware about the challenge, and it helped me in a way to really perceive my pathway here.
I love that. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. I laugh because I totally relate with that comment. I think I was telling Mike actually the other day. It's like, Mike, if I knew it was gonna be this hard, I probably wouldn't have started. So it's a good on you for not like giving us the whole, like, you were one day at a time, right? One day at a time. Don't ask questions about what the next, like, 6 months down the line you need to do. No, just one day at a time. Because of that, right? It's really, really hard. All of this is really, really hard, right? But it's totally worth it, right? I will say, like, angel investing definitely set me on a different path. That's what was the, what do you call it, like the segue into VC was angel investing for me, because I came from a very different background. When you are an operator at the highest levels of, like, corporate America and Fortune 100, it's really hard to imagine anything else. You're kind of in this, like, hamster wheel, like, going for the next ladder step, right? Maybe it's a few people in the crowd that are in Fortune 100 or corporate America can relate to this. It's kind of like you have these blinders on. You just don't see any other path, an alternative path, right? Those people, even when they are, like, CEO, CFO, and I've talked to CFOs of Fortune 100 companies, and some of them are my friends, right? Don't even understand that that's an option for them to invest in, right? Like they don't, like they're very risk averse. They work with financial advisors, and if you have a financial advisor because you're fairly wealthy and like done well in your career, financial advisors don't present venture capital as an option really to invest in, right? It's too high risk, and they're very risk averse themselves. So it kind of just doesn't. They're very far removed from that option, and that was me. So it actually took about 6 months for me to understand what was out there in terms of venture capital and private equity, right? I had to go way out of my way to like really find out that that was an option to create wealth for me, right? Intergenerational wealth, which was really important to me as a first-time immigrant from Peru in the US, because that's what my job was. Like as a first comer into the US, I was like, I need to figure out what the family plan is, right? For the future, for the next generations, right? For my brother's, children at some point, right? Like, and whatnot. So for me, it was like, okay, what's, and it all started honestly, just looking at my own capital and my own wealth and my husband's, and I would just started looking at like and it was during the pandemic, right? In case anyone is wondering, I had a little bit more time because we were all super productive, working from home, and then I was done like at 6 p.m. with work, and I was like, wow, I have all this more energy and time. So what am I gonna do? And I started looking into my own portfolio, right? Like what am I not in? And I'm a finance person, so I manage the finances of my home. So like it's like I'm investing in public stocks, bonds, we're about to make an investment in real estate. What are we not investing in that can fit in a strategy for long term patient capital, but it can be also high risk and high reward? And that was private equity, which filled that gap really greatly, right? Neatly. So I set out on this quest or journey, and I spent, I'm not kidding or exaggerating, about 6 months interviewing about 200 people in my network who were in private equity. It all started like that. And they all told me, if you want to learn about investing in private equity, the best way to do it is doing it. Learn by doing. And so go angel invest and go find deals. And so it was interesting because at the time my reaction was like, well, that sounds easier said than done. How do I find amazing CEOs and founders? I don't know, people like that. And they said, like, join angel syndicates, right? Like, join as a mentor in these accelerators and whatnot. And it all started like that. And then it went from there. So
that's super cool. I love that so much. Elvie, what about you?
Yeah, I didn't have as an extensive experience as Karen has with angel investing per se. I think I kind of jumped into venture fairly early. So being in the blockchain space, I did have very early exposure to companies that we kind of know all now. And because I was really fascinated by the industry and what it can actually create for the world, and I truly believe in that system. I did have an exposure into a few companies pretty early on that now are the companies that we all know about, which is pretty good in terms of I was able to recognize those companies, I think, pretty early on, and really was betting at that time on the founders that have very strong background in building similar systems, but for Web 2. I think that experience really taught me to bet on the founders themselves versus, in addition to the market, versus anything else. Because I think from then on, there were so many companies that were building something similar, but I think the founders are the ones that actually made it happen. I think that was a very strong lesson I learned, that really betting on the founders versus anything else.
Amazing. And we have a question here in the chat. What are some common mistakes startups make when seeking venture capital? So, I don't know who wants to take this, but I think we could spend a whole hour or two on this alone, but let's just kind of give a few, pointers here.
Yes, it's for me, and I really think that this is a very universal advice. In our first fund, we got like 1,700 applications, and some of them, and we were running a deep tech fund, and some of them were B2C, SaaS, no deep tech at all. And I think that the first advice I would give, just do not send a general email to every domain that has a VC in the name, just look for an alignment. Check whether your thesis and the thesis of the investment fund, whether they align, whether the ticket size, it's fine for you. We've been approached by the companies who were looking for tickets like 20 million or something, while our assets under management were 7.5. So this was a complete misalignment, and then it's a wasting of time for you, for the venture capital, and this is also the source of disappointment and the comment, oh, nobody's answering us, because you're just you're not knocking to the right door. So I think this is the most common mistake, to knock on the door and not checking whether this is the place where you really want to be.
Yeah, really, really important one. Anyone want to add anything on this topic?
I'd like to add, I think I'm not sure what not to do. I know what to do. I think personal relationships really matter. I think building relationships with investors face-to-face is unprecedentedly important. So going to conferences, going to places where they might be speaking, or getting the warm introduction from other founders is one of the best ways, I think, to get in touch with investors. Second, if you do reach out cold, I think the most important things to highlight, instead of very long email, few things to highlight. Number one, the product and why your product matters. Number two, the previous background of the founders. Again, I'm kind of coming back to that. And the third is the terms of the investment. So how much you're raising, back to the previous point. So there's an alignment.
Karen, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, just to round it up, and on the relationship building, that's so important. And in this industry, it's all about relationships, right? We're building community and relationships for 10 years or longer. So keep that in mind when you reach out. And I would say, like, because of the timeline of how relationships work, right? Instead of appearing like a transactional founder or investor, this advice also I give the same to fellow investors, right? Like it's okay to, like, you want to, in a lot of ways, build that relationship before you need the capital, right? I mean, I love meeting founders before they're ready to go to market. Like, that's really important. Like, if they reach out with that, I was like, yeah, awesome, right? Like, they are still building, and most of the time should be spent building. I don't need them distracted, like really hobnobbing investors necessarily, but like it is important when you're looking at it on a long-term view to really understand that, right? Like, I do the same, right? Like, and then one thing that founders have to keep in mind is that just like you were fundraising, right? So we in a way, we're kind of timing that moment when it'll be, you're raising your round and we're also ready to deploy, right? Like, because we have capital calls and all the fun stuff, right? So it does work well when you really adopt that mindset of, like, the relationship is gonna go for a while, right? Like, I'm not a very transactional investor. I really like to meet founders before they're fundraising or they need to fundraise. So, in fact, the two companies that I invested in that are in climate tech, I knew the founders not over a year. We had been having conversations over a year before we decided to invest. So, but that's maybe just my personal perspective, but yeah.
And Myrto, maybe if I could add one thing, very often people do not look at the portfolio of the fund, and or they do, and then they say, oh, you have a similar company in your portfolio, maybe you would like to invest in us. Unless you are targeting a very niche oriented investor, it's not a good idea, because we want to build a really diverse portfolio, and we want to check, like with the experiment, we want to run different experiments with different fields, with different founders, with different ideas. So if we are approached by a similar idea, with a similar approach, we will never ever invest, because first thing, this would create a conflict of interest. Which baby should I love more? Because then I have to share my contact list and so on with them. And the second is, our portfolio would not be diverse enough. And, we have to also think about the returns for our investors, our LPs. And then, we can't really afford to have a very concentrated portfolio. So please look at the previous investments of the fund. And I think it would enormously help you to navigate your conversation with the fund.
Absolutely, absolutely. That, yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I think some investors were both in Uber and Lyft, So I think it's happened before, but it's like it creates so much kind of complexity there, and and then maybe the founders, it impacts the trust that they have with the investors. So yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Iwona. Deb is asking, can you speak about your own fundraising journey to start a fund? How did you build your pipeline of LPs? Anyone can go first for this one.
Yeah, so for us, the Fund 1 was completely different than Fund 2. With Fund 1, we started with the institutional investor. And by the way, we are based in Poland, and there was an offer to the VC firms just to apply for the money once you have some private investors on board. So we get a number of people who we just knew from our network, and then we match this with this public capital. Like everywhere there are strings attached, we were not able to invest actually outside of Poland, and that's why we decided with the second fund to deploy different strategy and to look for only a private capital. And here we just follow Adio and Mike advice. Just run circle by circle. First, you start with your closest circle. We started with our former LPs, and it was completely crazy for us to run with this idea to ask for money without the deck. Everyone who went through the program, what I'm talking about. It was like, what? It's not possible. So we started from the very first circle, the closest one, our former LPs, and then we gradually went to the circle number 2. So the people who knew for some common either LPs or our friends and so on. And we've also, and here we failed, we also approached a number of institutional investors who claimed to invest in emerging founders. And once we ask about the definition of the emerging investor or GP, it would be good if you are ex-Sequoia. So, it was a hard lesson. So this is the way that we are pursuing it still, but very cautious, because it's again about this alignment. It's like a knocking to the right door. It's the same advice for startups, and this is actually the same advice for the fundraising on the GP level. So yeah, this is our journey in a nutshell.
Amazing. Thank you, Iwona. Elvie, Karen, do either one of you want to go next?
Yeah, oh, sorry, Elvie, did you want to go next?
No, go ahead.
Can you repeat the question, Myrto? I got lost.
Of course. Yeah. So the question is, can you talk a little bit about your own fundraising journey and building a pipeline of LPs?
Yeah. I think Ivana just hit the nail on the head. Like sometimes you what was the expression that Adele used a long ago, and I love that. You're gonna kiss many frogs before you it's charming. It's true. I mean, the LP love, right? Like so many quotable moments from VC Lab. Seriously, like I really love it. Yeah, LP love is real. It's hard for Fund 1, right? I mean, you don't really have a track record. It doesn't matter that you've made angel investments. It doesn't matter that you have 16 years of experience as a finance, Fortune 100, award-winning, like leader, none of that matters, right? Like, because you're being compared with many other managers who are experienced. You're being like, the stack is, it's daunting, right? Like, I mean, why does another climate tech fund need to exist? What are you bringing that's so special? Why are you the best to like source these deals? Why are you the best to win these deals? Like, why would a founder pick you versus any other climate tech rockstar investor? Like, it's just daunting, right? But I will say, like, once you find your superpower, and like for me, for example, I've been told, I need to be told by people, for me to really understand what my strengths are. I really, and not because I like doubt myself, but because I relish on feedback. I really love feedback, and that's actually one of my strengths. I've been told by many managers in my past career is, you take feedback like a champ. You really are great. You incorporate feedback and you are able to grow with it. You somehow are able to like put aside the form that it's being delivered, and you just go with it, right? It's because I like to see data in everything, even in like emotions convey data, right? Like, so I like to hear out the feedback. Sometimes, you have to be like, you have to be discerning that sometimes people are just going to say things to you, they're not really trying to help. Like, so you need to discern, like, who is being helpful or not. And even those who are really helpful might have like a really terrible delivery, right? Like really crass about it, or really rude about it, or like be in the heat of the moment or whatever. But you still can distill information. So I think like recognizing my strengths, one was taking feedback and therefore learning fast. So learner is one of my strongest suits. And then also connecting people. I've been told time and time again, Karen, you need to lean strongly on that. You are a powerful connector. You connect people. You really are able to like meet someone, and you already have like two other people. I do. I already have two other people in mind that I can connect them with that will add instant value to to their network. And I think as an investor, I never thought that that would be something that could really be a unique advantage, right? A differentiator. So I started leaning on these more like EQ things that I was like kind of taking for granted in my past life, because I was so focused on the hard skills, finance numbers and all that, which I got that already. But I think in these industries it's really important to lean on those other strengths, EQ stuff. And so for raising a fund, that has helped me. And I know I've been told by VC Lab people lately that events, right? I started organizing events. So for fundraising for Fund One, what helped me and got to finally the next stage of my fundraising journey was really creating events, really grouping interesting people, really kind of providing ROI from day one. That's what I say, right, to people, right? Not wait until you have an exit in year 7 to get your distributions as an LP, but like, what can I do? How can I lend my network to you as a potential LP, as a founder, or whatever, so that you can gain that advantage from day one with me, right? So events were a nice way to do that, and that really accelerated our fundraising journey.
Yeah, I love that you brought some of these things up, Karen. And, building a VC fund is so emotional after all, because it's all about how you're making the LPs feel, which starts with how you feel. And so you have to hack how you feel to ensure that you're kind of passing over the excitement and the confidence that LPs want to see in you. So yeah, I'm so happy that you brought up this aspect of it. Elvie, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Really good points. Actually, the previous two speakers shared. Appreciate that. I think, yeah, it really starts with yourself. So really believing in yourself, I think it's the most important thing. And for that, I think it doesn't come to just bluntly believing in yourself, but coming up with the reasons for why you should be believing in yourself, right? So really putting down your thesis, writing it down, and have the deep understanding of it, have the deep understanding of the space, have deep understanding of the value that you create that's very unique to you. My previous co-panelist here mentioned about, why your fund? There's so many other funds, but really having clear answer to that is very important, because once you have that, once you understand your uniqueness and your contribution to the space, to the industry, that energy of your self-confidence comes through. So that's number one. Number two, to me, was really helpful to reach out to my network that I built over years in the blockchain industry. A lot of the people that know me for many years want to support me now as my investors. So really reaching out to them. And then actually, when I started getting checks from people that I just recently met, that's when, to me, that was the turning point, because that was a sign that it wasn't just the people that know me want to support me, but people that don't know me now want to support me. So that was a really strong boost of confidence again. And then a third, I would say actually what was helpful extremely is focusing on closing an investor fairly fast instead of dragging it along for a long time. Because once there is momentum, and Mike talks a lot about momentum, which is so true. Once you have the momentum going and someone is interested in investing in the fund, that's when you need to close them. If you wait even 2 weeks, they might have had other opportunities coming to them. They might have had some family event happening. You kind of lost that 80% of the energy already. So really focusing on that. And I think that really comes to founders too. It's very relevant as well, as founders that are raising funds. And the fourth point for me was really helpful to speak at events. Because once you speak at events, actually, I had a few people coming up to me post speaking and expressing interest in investing. So, yeah.
That's such a good summary. Thank you so much, Elvie. For this next kind of part of our conversation here, I kind of want to turn it over to having you guys kind of think about not only being a woman in venture capital, but also being a woman in deep tech, in climate, in blockchain. What's that like? Give us a bit of a sense of being a woman venture capital investor in those three quite male dominated sectors. And maybe Karen, we can start with you.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, to start. So many of the companies and industries that I've been on have been fairly male dominated, right? In finance, and aviation, like, I mean, tech, right? Let's just be honest. And then now climate, right? I had been told, like, oh my gosh, finally another woman in this climate event or something, right? And I do try to seek out the opportunities to connect with other women. So there is an organization called Women and Climate, for example, right? Like, there's many actually now that are trying to push for more diversity in the industry. But I'll say, like, what it has been for me is it's interesting because I think that I've grown up seeing women having to cope with a world that has not been made by them for them. Right? Like, it's just how it is. It's the reality that we live in, and I think they either shrink themselves or they try to like hide the aspects of their female, the fact that they're female, or do the opposite and try to act like men to get ahead, right? And we've been guilty, at least I can say I've been guilty of using all of those coping mechanisms, right, to adjust to get ahead, right? And finally, when I guess I turned into my mid 30s, I realized, you know what, I can't. I'm not gonna do anything than just being myself, you know. And yes, myself is wearing red, pink lipstick. That's who I am. That's what I like. I'm not gonna hide that anymore. That's who I am, right? I think that I think women, we just need to embrace, right, in every sector that we go, who we are and what makes us really super powerful, which is we don't I noticed, at least for me, I've noticed that about me. Like, I don't invest the same that how a man does invest, right? Like, I've observed this a lot in my male LPs, male GPs, and all that. It's this, like, gut kind of like feeling, spray and pray, like just like really with a gut, like investing. Like 5 minutes in, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, you're just out. Like, nah, I'm out. I don't understand. Okay, like, and I'm painting a very generic, and I realize I'm painting a very generic gut reaction to what I've seen, or like what I've observed, or like 20 minutes in and they're all in, right? Great. I'm like, where is the middle, right? Like, I'm more in the middle, right? Like, if I don't understand, I want to learn more. So I feel like, in my female LPs, and I have quite a few female LPs, which is really exciting, and I'm proud of, right, to have a lot of female LPs. They just are more like relationship oriented, and they want to understand fully what they're getting themselves into. And I relate to that, right? I'm not risk averse. I'm risk embracing, but I want to educate myself on what I'm investing. And so I'm more values aligned too in what I'm looking to invest in, right? Again, so I find that a lot of my female LPs are similar. And so I realized that, okay, we connect in that way, because they're like, hey, can I understand a little bit better, how is it that you invested in gender and material? Can you walk me through all of this? And maybe the institutional investors, whatever the gender might be, sound the same, but that we know why, right? Like, they are professionally investing, right, someone else's money, so they have to, right? But in the individual, high net worth individual level, I've observed that women are more, they want to get more involved as in a relationship building with me. The due diligence process looks way more deep, right? Um, because it's in a lot of ways, it's their first time investing too in a venture fund. So they also want to really understand what they're getting themselves into. And they are more oriented towards values investing, right? Values based investing. So I think I've observed those three differences. Um, and I think that a lot of women just need to stop doubting ourselves and understand that the way you are and how you think and how you make decisions is actually your strength. I mean, the numbers are screaming and coming out saying that, if GP or VC firms that have at least one female partner outperform, right, in financial returns, female investors actually outperform too, like, or female founders too. Like, we just need to embrace our powers and stop doubting ourselves so much, right? And just bring our full selves to the table, and you understand that if you're doubting, if you have something that is telling you something smells funky, go and realize that and listen to that, right? Maybe everyone else on the table who's not a woman doesn't see it, but you see it, and there's a reason why you see that. So you really trust your experiences and your expertise and your gut, and that sense.
Yeah, there's a comment in in the chat. I resonate with that so much, Karen. Is what Natasha's saying, and I think you're absolutely right, and I love how you bring up kind of operating in a male-made world, kind of, and I think the purpose of having these discussions is also to kind of hear what it's like building a venture capital firm from women, or you know what I mean, and so. I think that's super, super important for all of your kind of voices to be heard about, what is, because you're also changing the industry, right? And you're coming at it from such a unique, diverse perspective and background. And, there's a new narrative that's being created about, what this sector is all about and what the future of it looks like. So yeah, no, thank you so much for that, Karen. Elvie, do you want to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really good points there, Karen. Really appreciate that. I think to me, actually, can't really paint. Yes, blockchain is a very male-dominated industry. Even at events and conferences, I would say maybe 30% are women, which actually is not that bad. Because I've been at the gaming conference recently, and I think the ratio was much different. So not that bad. I think really what makes my approach maybe a bit different, and actually think that really works for me, and maybe it would work for women listening now. I don't really focus on being a woman in the industry. I focus on my expertise. I focus on my track record and the value that I can provide. And that really shifts my thinking when I interact with people, with women or men or whatever, because I believe that, they see me that too. They don't see me as a woman per se, but as an investor that provides a lot of value. So I think that was tremendous help for me. And it happened not because I learned to do it. I was always like that. I never felt somehow smaller or less than because I was a woman. And second, I think actually to Karen's point about embracing really that you're a woman. The world was created in dual way for reason, right? We not like same gender, and it is because we do provide a lot of value and insights as different gender, as women. And I would say, because of my background as a kid, I had an exposure to a ton of reading, understanding human nature, was really interested how the movements work in a global scale, how change works, how innovation works, but also connected that with my gender-specific understanding of the world and experiences, I think helped me to connect seemingly disconnected concepts, and that not only can amplify each other, but can actually create completely new patterns and opportunities. And the founders that I speak with and help support post-investment, which I love doing, I'm a very hands-on investor, really appreciate that. They don't get the same level of strategic thinking or forward kind of opportunity creation mode with, say, not as much with, say, other investors, right? So they actually, a lot of my portfolio companies called me sister or mother, which is so cute. But that's the point of really bringing that uniqueness and perspective that I think most founders really need, but cannot get necessarily. So yeah, embracing that.
I love that. That's beautiful, Elvie. Thank you so much. Iwona, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with what was said by Karen and Elvie. And if I think about my own pathway, and I try to focus more on opportunities than on obstacles. And if you really think about it, who have ever heard about the organization like Men in VC? Or I belong to two associations like Women in VC or European Women in VC, but I've never ever heard about the Men in VC. So if you look for opportunities, and if you are an emerging partner, an emerging manager, I think you have a lot of more resources and possibilities to connect and to build this relationship than your male counterparts. And I think, at least this is my strategy, to focus on finding the ways to build this missing network, to build this missing relationships among other VC funds and startups and so on. And I'm just focusing on the opportunities, and there is a number of them. And once I jumped into this world, I was really looking for a role model. And it's very hard to find one person. But if you really attend all those meetings, discussions, even the one like this one, you can really build kind of the patchwork model where you take a little bit from everyone, from every discussion, and you can by that define your own pathway. So, this is at least my approach, and it works for me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Iwona. We only have a few minutes left, and I'm conscious of everyone's time here. You're all extremely busy, and for everyone here, by the way, we're leaving this Air Meet open for a whole other hour, and you're going to be able to kind of jump on networking tables as well to connect with each other and kind of start building that community of women in the space. And for the speakers, I mean, if you do have time, it would be obviously amazing if you could kind of join us at the networking after. But, before we kind of wrap this up, do you have any kind of words of advice for women entering this space? What is it that you want them to kind of know? What advice would you give yourself kind of coming into this? And maybe Elvie, we can start with you.
You know, I'd say before getting into it, feel inner strength and confidence that this is exactly what you want to do. I think for me, it took a lot of life experience, but also really searching for my answers before I fully committed to this journey. Once you have that, just do it, because the road appears in front of the walker, and all the answers will start coming to you later. No one knows the answers right away. We had this point about, half a year from here, have no idea what's going to happen. But I don't think about that. I think about the next thing. I need to close the next check, actually. That's what I think about right now. And speak with the founder. So, and you will be so amazed how in life, well, just in general too, once you start focusing on something, so many answers start coming to you and opportunities start opening up. So just do it.
Yeah, just go for it one step at a time, and everything's gonna start making sense, and kind of answers will start answering themselves. Awesome. Iwona, what about you?
Yeah, I would really like to rephrase a little bit of what Karen already said. Just don't be shy about yourself. If you want to try venture capital, then do it. Just, that you do not have this afterthought, oh, I could do this or that. Just try to do it, and, either you will succeed or not. But I think what matters most is whether you perceive what you think and what you believe. And even if it makes you less likable, nobody, especially startups, don't like when you say no to them. It's very similar to the answers you get from the LPs when you hear no. It just means there was no enough alignment to, pursue this pathway together. So just don't be shy, and just, follow your guts, and this is what you want to do.
Amazing, Iwona. Karen, last but not least, what advice do you have to give to women here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like this is such a opaque industry. If you want to go into VC, you need a lot of help. Join communities that can help you. Like VC Lab is doing a lot of great work, trying to make the industry much fairer and more diverse. So I would say like check them out. There's a lot of ways to like really learn about VC that they provide opportunities to enter the venture world through as an emerging manager through VC Lab, and as a closing program really. The Venture Institute. There's just a lot of different ways, and then a lot of more organizations, right, that really can help you get up to speed on a venture. And the best way to learn is really doing. So if you can get like into mentoring startups, right, like or investing, if you're an accredited investor, you can go directly investing into startups already. Just get moving and get going with that. Okay.
Amazing. What a beautiful way to wrap this up. Everyone, please give it up for a beautiful panel. This was amazing. Follow them on LinkedIn as well, by the way. Make sure you kind of follow them on their journey. We talked about role models, and, I couldn't think of better role models for our industry than you three. So Iwona, Karen, Elvie, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing all of your kind of wisdom, insight, and advice with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, and see you at the networking.